Did you know that some actors spend months, even years, preparing for a major role? But what if I told you that the lead actor in one of Netflix's most talked about series only a month becoming king? That's right, we're talking about Lee Chae-min, the young actor who took on the challenge of playing the powerful Yi Heon in Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty, a seemingly impossible decision, limited time, a complex character, and a legion of fans already expecting a flawless performance. How did he pull it off? Today, you'll discover the behind-the-scenes story, revealing the grueling days, sleepless nights, and intense training that transformed Lee into a true monarch in front of the cameras. From learning to ride a horse and practicing ancient calligraphy to performing traditional dances and food scenes that required more than just chewing, every detail was part of this incredible marathon. And that's precisely what makes this journey so fascinating. We're not just talking about acting, but also dedication, discipline, and courage. A transformation that could have gone wrong in many ways, but ended up becoming one of the greatest triumphs of her career. So brace yourself, because every minute of this video will show you why Lee Chae-min not only accepted the challenge, but also won millions of hearts around the world. If you love true stories of self-improvement and want to follow content like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because what comes next will surprise you. Imagine receiving the news that you will be the star of a huge Netflix series, but that has less than a month prepare. That's exactly what happened to Lee Chae-min. While many actors spend months, sometimes years, preparing, he found himself in a race against time. The actor himself confessed that, as soon as he received his confirmation, he barely slept. He spent entire nights studying, rehearsing, and trying to get into the shoes of a king. And here's the point that stands out. How could someone so young take on the weight of being the central figure in a historic production that was already born with great expectations? It was a huge risk. If it went wrong, the failure would be remembered by all. But if it went well, it could be the culmination of his career. Lee didn't hide the intense feeling of pressure. In his own words, the weight was heavy, but there was no need to be afraid. This phrase almost became a motto. He knew that if he allowed himself to be overcome by fear, the character wouldn't come to life. And that's precisely where we see the difference between those who dream of success and those who achieve it. It's not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it. Have you ever imagined yourself in his shoes, taking on a role that could change everything, with the whole world waiting to judge your every move? This sense of responsibility is almost suffocating, but it was the driving force that drove Lee Chae-min to throw himself body and soul into the role of Yi Heon. And with each rehearsal, with each detail he learned, he stopped being just a young actor and began to transform into the king the audience would never forget. Among Lee Chae-min's biggest challenges in preparing for Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty, it was necessary to learn to ride a horse in record time. In a historical drama, the king can't simply appear majestic. He needs to move naturally, like someone who grew up surrounded by courtly rituals and noble practices. And in this context, riding a horse is almost obligatory. To give credibility to the character of Yi Heon, Lee began taking intensive horseback riding lessons shortly after being cast. While other actors spent months, even years, training, he had only a few weeks. The process was challenging. It required balance, a firm posture, and at the same time a serene gaze, as if riding were an everyday occurrence. He also had to learn to handle the horse, conveying confidence and self-assurance, as any slip-up could shatter the illusion of royalty on camera. In interviews, Lee stated that this was one of the areas he worked hardest to achieve, even repeating the training to the point of exhaustion. In each session, the goal was the same: to minimize artificial movements and achieve a realistic posture. It wasn't enough to sit properly. He had to feel comfortable in that environment, like a king accustomed to power and responsibility. On set, this preparation made a difference. The scenes in which the king appears on horseback took on greater significance, conveying not only the character's imposing presence, but also the actor's confidence, who, in a short time, mastered something that would take many years. It was an impressive transformation, from a novice to a convincing rider, all in a matter of weeks. This effort reinforced Lee Chae-min's image as a committed professional, willing to go above and beyond to play a memorable role. If there's one thing that distinguishes a king in a historical drama, it's his relationship with the symbols of power of the time. Among them, traditional calligraphy, he holds a special place. The handwritten decrees, letters, and orders weren't just bureaucracy. They reflected the monarch's authority and education. And for Lee Chae-min, who had to convincingly portray Yi Heon, It wasn't enough to simply hold a paintbrush on stage. He had to show himself as someone who had mastered this art with ease. Early in his training, the actor immersed himself in the practice of writing with brush and ink. He spent days learning to control the weight of his hand, the rhythm of his strokes, and even his breathing, as traditional calligraphy requires patience and concentration. Each line must flow smoothly, and any tremors can reveal insecurity. For a king, this would be unacceptable, and Lee knew he couldn't take any risks in front of the camera. He has commented in interviews that this stage of preparation was surprisingly difficult. Unlike conventional writing, traditional calligraphy requires an almost meditative discipline. The entire body must be aligned. Upright posture, firm wrist, steady gaze. It wasn't just about writing words, but also about conveying dignity with every stroke. On set, this effort translated into realistic scenes that impressed even the crew. When Yi Heon's character was seen writing decrees, Lee's gestures seemed automatic, as if they had always been a part of his life. This detail might go unnoticed by less attentive viewers, but it is precisely what makes the performance so convincing. By taking calligraphy so seriously, Lee Chae-min demonstrated his willingness to go beyond the obvious, incorporating even the most subtle cultural elements to bring King Yi Heon to life. It was another step toward solidifying his complete transformation into a believable and memorable historical figure. Among all the aspects of his preparation, perhaps the most unexpected for Lee Chae-min was the need to learn Korean traditional dance. In Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty King Yi Heon was not only a ruler who attended banquets or battles, but also a figure who participated in court rituals, moments that demanded refined gestures and impeccable posture. Dance was essential for this. Although he had never had in-depth experience with this art, Lee dedicated himself with the same discipline he applied to all other stages of his training. He began training with specialized instructors, repeating movements that, for a beginner, seemed almost impossible to master. Traditional dance is not just about rhythm, but also about conveying elegance, balance, and serenity in every step. His gestures had to convey authority while also showing respect for tradition. The training included posture, balance, and even breathing exercises. Any incorrect torso tilt or hasty movement could shatter the illusion of royalty. With each rehearsal, Lee realized the importance of the small details. It wasn't enough to memorize the movements. He needed to incorporate the posture of a monarch at a ceremony. During filming, this learning became evident. In scenes where Yi Heon participates in rituals or performs ceremonial movements, the audience sees a king who commands the space with gestures that are both gentle and firm. Although few consciously perceive the effort behind it, this naturalness is the result of hours of training, sweat, and discipline. As with the horsemanship and calligraphy, the dance proved once again that Lee Chae-min left nothing to chance. Devoting himself to every detail, he transformed the burden of brief preparation into a performance brimming with authenticity, further enhancing the character's credibility with the audience. While the physical and technical preparation was intense, the character's emotional development required even more attention. Lee Chae-min knew that mastering skills like horsemanship, calligraphy, and dance wasn't enough. To be convincing as King Yi Heon, he needed to find the right tone in his performance, balancing authority with fragility. It was at this point that rehearsals and readings with the director began. Jang Tae-yu became crucial. Shortly after being cast, the actor began participating in group readings, sessions that brought together the main cast. On these occasions, every word was analyzed, every gesture commented on. The director sought to convey not only the historical context, but also the emotional layers that shaped the king, a leader seen as a tyrant, yet burdened by inner pain and human contradictions. For Lee, this process was a vital laboratory. He closely observed his more experienced colleagues, learning from their intonation, gazes, and strategic pauses. Little by little, he discovered how to balance the imposing presence of a ruler with the vulnerability of someone marked by invisible wounds. This duality was the essence of the character, and discovering it early on was crucial to his performance. Lee himself revealed in interviews that, at first, he struggled to maintain the king's authority without seeming forced. But thanks to the director's guidance and the support of his colleagues, he found a naturalness that ultimately became one of the series' strengths. The process required humility and a willingness to learn, but also the courage to take risks and experiment with new forms of expression. In the final result, this care was evident. Each dialogue scene possesses an undeniable intensity, not only because of the text, but also because of the way Lee Chae-min absorbed the instructions and transformed the rehearsals into authenticity. The audience doesn't see an actor hastily improvising, but rather a confident monarch, commanding his space and conveying genuine emotions. Among all the elements that marked Lee Chae-min's preparation, one of the most curious was, without a doubt, the training for the acting scenes. Mukbang, those in which the character appears tasting dishes and reacting to the flavors. In Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty, food isn't just a detail of the setting, but an essential part of the narrative. King Yi Heon has powerful moments at banquets, and his way of tasting each dish must convey pleasure, surprise, and even emotion. Chewing in front of the camera may seem simple, but the truth is that acting while eating is one of the greatest challenges for any actor. The scene can't seem artificial. Every facial expression, every hand gesture, and even the look in your eyes at your plate must feel real. That's why Lee decided to create his own technique. Before each take, he would close his eyes and imagine the flavors he would experience. "I thought, it's sweet, it's spicy, it's bitter," he explained in an interview. This mental preparation helped him react convincingly, as if he were actually tasting the dish for the first time. In addition, he had to coordinate the timing of his bites with the camera and the editor. Simply eating wasn't enough. He had to give the audience time to notice the changes in his expression. So he practiced controlling the speed of his gestures, lengthening some pauses to emphasize the gastronomical experience. This care brought authenticity to the scenes, which became some of the most talked about moments of the series. Audiences didn't just see an actor chewing, but a king experiencing a unique experience before each course. In the end, even the smallest details, such as a look of satisfaction or a brief pause before swallowing, were the result of practice and dedication. With this, Lee Chae-min managed to transform an everyday action into a powerful narrative device, further elevating his performance and demonstrating that, even in the most unexpected situations, his dedication was total. If learning horse riding, calligraphy, and even traditional dance already seemed demanding, nothing compares to the emotional challenge Lee Chae-min faced in portraying King Yi Heon. Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty. It wasn't enough to convey authority. The character suffered from internal wounds, loneliness, and moments of intense vulnerability. Each scene required not only technique, but also absolute emotional commitment. Lee revealed that many sequences were extremely exhausting. There were times when he had to cry on camera, exploring deep pains that weren't just scripted, but that he sought to access within himself. At other times, it was the loneliness of the throne that had to be revealed in his gaze, that silent weight that only an isolated ruler could feel. Reproducing this wordless emptiness was one of the most challenging aspects of his performance. After an intense shoot, the actor said he would return home completely exhausted. The emotional toll was so great that some days he could barely relax. There were even times when he had to rewrite his lines in the studio because his voice became unstable during filming. Real crying, heavy breathing, and even the slightest interruptions in his intonation interfered with the audio, requiring subsequent corrections. Despite the difficulties, these moments became the essence of the series. Audiences recognized the truth in his performance. He wasn't just an actor expressing sadness, but someone who immersed himself deeply in the character. This authenticity made many emotional scenes unforgettable, strengthening the connection between the viewer and the narrative. In the end, the emotional weight wasn't just an obstacle, but also an opportunity. It transformed the character's vulnerability into dramatic power, proving that Lee Chae-min didn't just play Yi Heon, but lived him in every detail. After weeks of intense preparation and months of grueling filming, the most anticipated moment arrived: the audience's reaction. For Lee Chae-min, all the effort, the sleepless nights, the horseback riding training, the calligraphy, the dancing, and even the emotional rehearsals would only make sense if the audience believed he was, in fact, King Yi Heon. And that's exactly what happened. Immediately after the premiere of Enjoy Your Meal, Your Majesty's social media and entertainment forums were filled with comments. Many viewers were amazed by the young actor's steady and detailed performance. Some commented, "You weren't acting, you were the king." This phrase, repeated over and over again, was Lee's greatest reward. It wasn't just technical praise, but genuine recognition for having managed to convincingly bring the character to life. Critics also praised her performance. Several cultural and television outlets highlighted Lee Chae-min's transformation, noting that she had little time to prepare, yet she delivered a performance worthy of a major historical production. The contrast between her limited experience in leading roles and the complexity of the character only reinforced the positive impact of her performance. For the actor himself, this return meant much more than applause. He revealed that he was moved by the comments from fans who had followed every detail, from the ceremonial gestures to the intensely emotional scenes. Seeing the audience notice his effort and connect with his performance was proof that every sacrifice was worth it. Ultimately, the recognition not only cemented Lee Chae-min's reputation as a successful leading actress, but also opened new doors for her career. Her name became associated with dedication, discipline, and authenticity, qualities that transformed a nearly impossible challenge into an unforgettable triumph. When the cameras turned off and the episodes began airing, Lee Chae-min was finally able to look back and reflect on everything he'd been through. In just a few weeks, he went from an unexpected role to becoming the star of one of Netflix's most talked-about dramas. It wasn't just a fast-paced preparation, but a true personal and professional transformation. The actor himself revealed that he sometimes doubted himself. The pressure was immense, replacing another actor at the last minute, learning complex skills in record time, and, on top of that, taking on a multifaceted character. But with each obstacle overcome, Lee realized that it wasn't just a role. It was also a test of discipline, courage, and passion for the art of acting. Today, he says he wants to keep his feet on the ground despite his sudden success. Recognition from both the public and critics hasn't made him complacent. On the contrary, it has reinforced his desire to continue growing and challenging himself with new projects. For Lee, the most important lesson wasn't just convincing like a king, but discovering that, with effort and dedication, it's possible to go beyond any limits imposed by time or circumstances. And this is the message that remains. Enjoy your meal, Your Majesty. It was not only a memorable series for fans, but also a turning point in the career of a young actor who embraced the impossible and made it a reality. A story of overcoming challenges that inspires and demonstrates that behind the scenes, battles are fought just as intensely as those we see on stage. If you were moved by this trip and want to follow more behind-the-scenes true stories, give the channel a like, subscribe, and tap the bell. That way, you won't miss any details about the upcoming trips we'll reveal.